today we're going to talk about our blueprint for effective online fitness assessments. And I think that's a question for a lot of trainers is, how on earth can I assess, or do I assess someone online? Because we all learn how to assess face-to-face, one-to-one, where you can see the person, watch them move. But how on earth do you translate that into online? Because often, face-to-face assessments, they simply won't work online. So what do we do? And that, James, is a question we had to answer for ourselves way back when we started online training. So do you want to sort of explain the story of how we created the system, which is ever evolving, by the way?
Yeah, exactly, totally. So it's the whole process started in about 2015-16 when I met the guys who founded True Coach, and I was chatting to them at a conference, and they were talking about the idea of online personal training software. And not alarm bells, but this light bulb moment happened. We go, oh my God, I can finally find a way to solve the other 360 days a year where we're not training people, or the other hours in the week where we're trying to train people. And it was like, oh, this is a really good idea. We can combine online training with in-person training. We came up with this whole idea of doing things. So, again, the famous story is we put an email out. We got 87 clients overnight. And it was a nightmare because we didn't know how to assess. We tried to do everything that we thought we could do in person online, but it just did not happen that way. We tried assessing people on Zoom. We tried assessing people through little ways of, writing in programs. It just wasn't happening. It was a complete, and we lost all of our clients bar 3. 2 of them are still with us today, by the way. From those 3 who stayed with us, 2 of them are still here. So Mike Hickman and Sasky Ford, we can shout you guys out to being the 2 original ones who are still with us. But the point was, it was completely different, and we didn't anticipate that. We thought it would be easy because we've been training people in person for years. We had over 10 years, training experience each. We've done it all before. We've done all the FMS stuff, but it doesn't answer questions that you need. So, for example, if you're trying to do FMS online with people, they need equipment. If you haven't got the equipment, you can't do it. So we're like, oh crap, well, what are we going to do about this? So we had to come up with a very different solution, because Zoom calls, as we've said in previous podcasts, are not the option, right? Because it's death by Zoom, it's fatigue, it's boring, it's time consuming, it's not working. So we had to come up with an idea of this notion of self-assessments. So our blueprint for assessment is all now about self-assessing. Now, whether you're online or in person, we get clients to self-assess, right? Now, there's a lot of trial and error in this, and the story behind this is my mother, right? So no mum jokes, please, Josh, which we normally do right here. So the point was, as we were trying these new assessments out, was like, some people could get some people couldn't get some. But I was like, well, hang on a second. We need to build an assessment system where it's so simple to use that even my mother can do it, right? And I say it with all love in the world, because she's not a fitness person. She's just an average person who loves gardening and horses, right? That's what she loves doing. So the point was, I had to come up with an idea of assessments that made sense for my mother to do. She would understand them, and then we could apply them to everyone else, but get all the relevant information that we needed, particularly. They
also still had a scientific basis as well. That's the thing. It wasn't just getting them to do random movements which meant nothing.
Exactly. And then there was, we tried doing some assessments, I'll give you an example. There was an overhead squat test we got her doing, and she just didn't understand it. She goes, why am I doing this? I can't do it. And she started questioning all these things. And I was thinking, well, you should be able to do it, mum, but you just can't do it. But she didn't quite get it. But then the real light bulb moment was when we did an assessment with her to test rotation. So in FMS, there's a standing rotation test where you put your feet together, and we're looking at ankle hip in relation to the thoracic spine as you turn and rotate. So what I did was, we got a test where she stood with her back to the mirror, and she had to literally physically rotate behind so she could see the opposite ear in the mirror. And for whatever reason, she thought that, oh wow, I can't do this. I should be able to do this. So every day she started practicing this in the mirror, to try and get better at it. And that was a test that made sense to my mum. She goes, well, if I can't do this, I should be able to do it. So she wanted to practice this to get better. So a few weeks later, she'd been trying some of these other exercises out, and she goes, James, I can finally see my ear in the mirror. And it was that light bulb moment that kind of sparked the idea of, well, no, we need to create simple assessments where there's minimal equipment. Ideally, what terms we use now, we use a wall, we use a tape measure, because most people have a tape measure at home, and a mirror, something like that that's easy to use with minimal equipment. So what we've done is we've created, our blueprint is that we ask people to self-assess, whether it's online or in person, right? That's the big difference. We now ask them to self-assess because it saves us time. right? So they either do the mini assessments on their own or they do the full assessments, but they're assessing on themselves in their own time. It saves us time. And then what we do is we collect the data, right? And we've created the assessments so idiot-proof that even my mum can do it, right, in the nicest possible way. And then when we have that data, and if or they record videos, ideally they do record videos,
I think that is important to sorry to cut in, really important to stress. We do ask for videos because, you know, ideally you would, you know, in as you say, it's all done, whether you're in person or online, you still self-assess. But if you were doing it in the gym, you could keep an eye on that person when they were doing them. But obviously online, you want to see the person moving. I think that's really important. So we ask for as many videos as possible, especially for slightly more complex tests like a squat test or something like that.
Exactly, and it gives us better information, but not everyone does it. So you had to also create it so it's almost a little bit foolproof. That's the one thing we learned. People still like to cheat. They say they can do something.
They'll always cheat. They cheat in person anyway.
Exactly. So I'll give you an example. There's the plank test was a good one. You have people saying they could do a 2-minute plank, but what you don't realise, you don't see, if they don't send a video, they're doing a really bad 2-minute plank. Right, so then we introduced the idea of the box crawl test, where they have to crawl around in a circle for 10 minutes plus. And very quickly, if they can say they can do a 2-minute plank but can't do a crawl for more than a minute, we know there's a big problem with their core, right? In multiple different ways. So we had to come up with other solutions along the same line too. So the blueprint is they self-assess. Whether they work with me in person or online, right? It makes no difference because our approach is all about hybrid training. You know, training is just training, right? It makes no difference whether you're online or in person. That's the system of what we're trying to do, and it frees up our time. We don't waste as much time. We're not doing death by Zoom. We're not doing like wasting hours of assessments. Clients can do it, but we're also getting buy-in from the clients because they're starting to understand more about why they're doing things, and they're learning something about their own body at the same time. We want to instill autonomy from the start, right, and taking control and responsibility for their own health and well-being. And most of the time, if we just lead their hand from the start, then guess what happens? You know, when we go away, which often happens, think about all your clients you've trained in the past, and they have gone away they've trained for 6 months, got great results, gone away for 6 months, they come back to square one, right? We don't want that to happen. So we're putting autonomy at the forefront of everything we do so they take responsibility. So our blueprint is they self-assess. We then have a conversation with them about the assessments, right? And then we build the program for them after that in terms of personalized coaching, whether it's online or in person. And yes, it works in person too, right? And we can give a good example of this of a recent client that me and Josh are working with. So our sister company, Cricket Matters, we work with a lot of higher end athletes with this, and I'm working in person with a promising young fast bowler. So the way it worked with this, before I even worked with him in person, Josh set up the online assessments for him. He did a series of online assessments. We got the online assessments. He spoke to him online about those assessments. And then I've taken it over now with some in-person training with him to improve his running and his systems. And that's how we work and combine as a team here at Strength Matters 2, using the online assessments, which are for in-person and online.
And also, just before we sign off and finish here, I think we want to say that there's a little bit of gamification as well, because everyone loves a bit of gamification nowadays.
Slash. Ciao guys, see you later.